soon. Winslow, you got a little bit of time, and we'll watch for other areas of circulation. That's an update to our radar right there. And no reason to believe that, even though we've got a little bit of a boundary certainly farther north into Johnson, Fayetteville, Greenland, over toward Farmington, Prairie Grove, we don't have any reason to suspect a tornado concern there at the moment. Probably some strong winds, very likely some strong winds. And we do have a severe thunderstorm warning. You can see that's been issued for really this entire line from Fayetteville all the way down to Fort Smith. Fayetteville all the way down to Fort Smith, and then another one south of that, all the way down to LaFleur County. So the straight line winds with this thing could be pretty intense for sure. We're watching what's going on farther south too. This is from Fort Smith, and we can see the edge of those storms starting to get a little closer. I'm gonna move the camera around just a little bit. We've got it panned right there to the northwest. I'm gonna pan our camera up a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the clouds. I might swing the camera around a little bit. Make sure we're not missing anything. No, it's all kind of the northwest of Fort Smith right now, so we'll go back here. But very intense little line there. Very intense little line for sure. We've also been watching things from Kavanaugh Hill, and we can see there we're also kind of looking off to the northwest. And might pan this camera up a little bit as well so that we know. So you can see a little bit better. Not picking up on a ton of lightning right there right now, but certainly a pretty intense line of storms there. If you're just now joining us, we do have a tornado warning for southwest Washington County. The tornado potential does not include Fayetteville. The threat we're seeing is really strictly southwest Washington County here. And actually, that's Drake, I think you'd agree that's probably weakened a little bit, hasn't it?
It's weakened, but it's still a very deep rotation there. Even if you look from other radars in Tulsa and in Fort Smith, you can see that it is a deep rotation there, although it is definitely not as tight as it was.
Yeah, I see what you mean. When you look at it from Tulsa, it's definitely a deeper rotation. I'm going to loop this for just the last 30 minutes. That's usually about what we want there. So from Tulsa, yeah, you can see because when we look at this from Tulsa, you know, we're actually looking at this a little bit higher up in the atmosphere. From Tulsa, this is looking at this circulation right here, seeing it at about 5,000 to 6,000 feet above the surface. When we look at it from Fort Smith, well, it's seeing it at, you know, closer to 1,900, 2,000 feet, so lower down. So lower down, we're seeing definitely less spin up with this storm. That's good, but when you look up higher into the storm, it's still there. It hasn't really gone away and hasn't even changed all that much. But not necessarily either something that would warrant a confirmed tornado warning like what we had earlier in Adair County. But still very worthy of the attention we're giving it and the concern we have with it. But it is good to see at least that the low-level rotation with this storm is not nearly what it was. But look, I mean, when you look at this on radar, it really just looks so similar. I mean, things have not played out at all the same way they did last night. We've had a ton more rain than we did last night ahead of this new line of storms that's kind of developed. It's a very different looking line. It doesn't look at all the same, but there are a lot of similarities. And so, particularly with this storm and how the overall look of it that we had yesterday morning over Van Buren and North Fort Smith. So, yeah, still a pretty dangerous storm, and go back to our camera in Springdale. That rain really coming down now. Well, Drake, you got something new?
Oh, I was just asking about power outages and seeing if we had any new reports of that, but nothing at this time.
At this time. Winds maybe not quite as intense as they were over Springdale earlier. Springdale could sure use a break from strong winds and hail and all of that. Washington County in general could use a break from the tornadoes, so could Crawford County. So with any luck, maybe we get through this line without too much tornado development. We do have another tornado-warned storm around McAllister, so that'll be something we'll be keeping an eye on as it moves into Leflore County. Still pretty far out from Leflore County. And the storm is moving through Sequoia County right now. A lot of lightning with this, quite a bit. And again, when we go back to our camera in Fort Smith, we're looking right toward this area right here, and we might eventually see a little bit of a shelf cloud kind of develop here. We'll see. We're seeing a little bit of lightning there off to the northwest. It's still pretty far from Fort Smith, so as it gets a little bit closer, we'll take another look at that. But right now, main concern again is what we've got here south of Fayetteville, well south of Fayetteville. The tornado warning, again, if you're just now joining us, you know, that's well south of Fayetteville. It does not include Fayetteville. There's not really a lot of reason to think that there's any tornado potential really at all in here. Heavy rain, and that's the real concern around Fayetteville, is the heavy rain. So flash flooding, a real concern there this morning. Anybody getting out and about, you're probably going to encounter at least a little bit of that. If I go ahead and pull up here, let's say the last 12 hours of rain, yeah, right over Fayetteville, Johnson. Plenty of rain over Benton County too, but from Huntsville right down just south of 412, but kind of along 412 too, into Fayetteville. Pretty intense amounts of rain already, and that's after quite a bit of rain yesterday in the Johnson area, an area that is known to flood occasionally. 2.8 inches of rain already with this storm, with more obviously coming down right now, so that those totals will go probably a little bit above 3. And 3 inches on top of the 2 inches of rain we got yesterday, and all the rain we've gotten this spring. It's a concern. It is a concern to be sure. All right, let's go back again. I want to take another look as this comes into Winslow, Blackburn area. Again, no clear tornado represented here on radar. National Weather Service, I'm assuming Drake still isn't really talking too much.
Just last message was about 7 minutes ago, where they said that circulation remains strong and persistent, but no obvious tornado signature. But they said can occur at any time given the strength of the rotation, which we saw yesterday. Any of these storms, as long as they stay persistent, they can drop a tornado for a minute and then lift right back up.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we had in a lot of cases yesterday. We had several tornadoes that just dropped, and then what was that? Okay, well, let's go ahead and which I'm sure all the RDOT cams.
Oh, I already have that one pulled
Clear
up.
Creek.
So
Okay, good. Clear Creek Bridge.
Yep.
Okay, well, you know, you can't actually see, I wouldn't say you could see any rotation necessarily in there, but man, the heavy rain is coming down. So when you look at this, you know, yeah, I mean, there's not much you can tell from that, but it's very heavy rain. The winds have been blowing around. Here's Clear Creek Bridge. Wind's blowing around a little bit there too. There's not much we can see, unfortunately.
See if
but
we go a little bit farther.
Oh, here we go. So that's around the south. That's around South State Highway 74. Where exact? Exit 45. So
That's going to be just south, I believe, of
one was it?
Banyard.
right here.
Yes. Well, I think it's the one just north
Just
of that.
north of Vineyard. Okay.
Well,
So
north
that-
of the RDOT tunnel cam, but that's right there
Okay,
at
so
the
right here then. Okay. Yeah, that's right there for sure. That's right there where our circulation is. Now that is interesting.
And they've extended that tornado warning as well.
Okay. Well, okay. So they've expanded it out there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what this is right here. We can't. I mean, you don't. It's so far away, and the image is not entirely. It's hard to tell exactly, but that looks like it's getting ingested in right there into the storm. Although that is moving, that's kind of, we're looking southbound right here, so that may be, I guess, moving with the storm. Boy, if I'm on this interstate right here and I'm going southbound toward the tunnel, that's not something I want to see. I don't think that's something anybody wants to see. So you can see either heavy rain or maybe the wind just blowing clouds, because we're at a higher elevation right here. Into the interstate. Hard to say exactly what that is, but that's in that area where we've got the tornado warning and we've got the circulation. I want to go back to radar. I might come back to that here in a second. Again, when we look at this on radar, we don't see any clear tornado signature. We see certainly clear circulation, but not really blatant tornado potential. Very strong winds in there, and so when we're looking at this, basically right around here, looking south, what we were seeing in that image, I think, was the very strong winds getting pushed over the interstate. We can go back to that camera.
And that
RDOT camera
that rotation is moving directly over that RDOT tunnel tower camera.
Let's go back to that one right there. I want to go back to that one. We can see a little bit more. And so we're looking toward the tunnel. What you just saw, I'm glad you showed that, Drake, because what we just saw is right in here, and that's about to be what it looks like right here too. That wind, I think, is what we saw. We just saw the wind just shoving heavy rain right over the interstate, and now you can see toward the edge right here that heavy rain's about to come in as well. So here in just moments, when we look back at this image, and we'll come back to it, but we probably won't be able to see really anything at all in that exact spot because we can see where that rain is relative to the spot we're talking about, where we were looking at an image basically right around here, and that's right where the circulation is. So let's go back to that camera, and we've got our sunset camera too. Let's make sure, real quick, put sunset in metrics 2.
Metrics 2?
Metrics 2. Let's put sunset in metrics 2. So this is the area to watch. I mean, this is, if there were a tornado to drop, which we don't think is going to happen in the next couple seconds because we're just not seeing it on radar, but if one were to drop, this is the exact area you'd want to look. So
all right, sunset is in 2 for you.
Is in 2, okay.
And
now, sunset should be pointed to the west. I think it's pointed to the west. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, that's pointed basically due off to the west. So this, just updated, it looks like. Is that right?
Yeah, it's...
Are those clouds moving a little bit?
It looks like it keeps...
Yeah, I think it's
chopping up a little bit there.
Yeah, it's freezing up a little bit. That's interesting. So this is from our Sunset Mountain camera, but it could have gotten struck by lightning. Any number of different things may have happened, but it looks like we're just, the stream is down for right now from that camera.
And we have a few people in the Facebook asking.
There it is. There it is. Right. Sorry. Just want to point this out.
The heavier rain, yes.
Yeah, and the wind's starting to come in, and folks driving through it right there. You got to feel for those folks. Golly. that's got to be a pretty horrible drive. And hopefully they get through it safe. I think they will. They just keep it slow. Again, we don't know of a tornado necessarily on the ground right now. As Drake mentioned, they did expand the tornado warning farther off to the east for this one, as it still has that potential. And what were we going to say there, Drake?
There's a lot of our Facebook comments are asking about Van Buren because the sirens are being sounded there. And they would like you to just kind of talk about what's going on there.
Not for a tornado. That's important to keep in mind. Sometimes the sirens in some communities, it's not ubiquitous, unfortunately. So different communities do different things. It can be very confusing, obviously. And sometimes the sirens will get run for a straight line wind concern. Part of the thing in Van Buren is they just went through a pretty terrible experience. Just a horrible experience for that little area there around Van Buren that got hammered around Baptist Health. And there's a few other areas that got hit pretty hard too outside of that. But there's a little bit of trauma that goes along with that, and folks in Northwest Arkansas should have a very good understanding of that, I think. And even in the River Valley, where we've seen so many tornadoes over the years, there's a lot of there is a little bit of that kind of plays in. But really, part of it, I think, is also just some communities run their sirens for straight line winds, and so that would be why you would have the sirens going right now. There over Van Buren, because the winds are getting pretty intense. Let's go back to our Fort Smith camera, which I believe was 3. Oh, there it is. All right, look at that.
Oh, yes.
So this is looking at these storms as they come into Fort Smith, and pretty brutal looking, aren't they? They really are. Looking along this line right here, not seeing, I'm going to pan the camera a little bit, make sure we're not missing anything. And not seeing anything in there. What we're seeing right here is what we call a shelf cloud. This is a shelf cloud, and there's no area within it that I see right now that gives me any reason to believe we've got a tornado anywhere in there at the front edge of it. Doesn't mean it can't happen, because it does occasionally, but I don't see any reason to believe we've got anything in there. And we're looking to the northwest with our camera in Fort Smith, and again, not seeing any clear tornado concerns right now. Obviously, a very ominous looking sky for sure. But maybe a little bit of rotation with some of this right here. I want to keep an eye on that. Watching those clouds move a little bit. And unfortunately, our camera is focusing on that wire. So I might just pan that over a little bit. There we go, so we can get this. There we go. Make a note, if you wouldn't mind, Drake, of 618.
618?
618. Right. So that's something we're going to want to keep a close. And I'm right now when I take a look at this right here, I panned it over this direction because there is a little bit of lowering right here. This would be well north of Van Buren. I don't think that's looking all the way up to the circulation in far north Crawford County. But that's way north of or a little bit north of Van Buren at least. But that's something we might want to keep an eye on. But on radar anyway, right now, we're not seeing any circulation in that area. So if you're hearing the sirens in Van Buren, a little bit farther off to the north, we do. Maybe that's what we're seeing here, north of Van Buren around Rudy. There is a little bit of circulation there. That's interesting to note. That's from Tulsa. From Fort Smith, not seeing any of it. Nothing there from Fort Smith, but from Tulsa, a little bit. That's probably what we're seeing when we look at our camera. here in North Fort's, that metrics 2, that should be Fort Smith, shouldn't it?
I think 3 is Fort
3,
Smith.
I'm sorry, that's right, 3. Okay. All right, let's get back to this. Here we go. All right. And you can even, wow, how that has just plowed its way all the way through, how fast this thing is moving. That's incredible. But not, nothing stretching down toward the ground anywhere in here. Again, this is looking right over Van Buren right here and North Fort Smith. Nothing in there. I mean, obviously scary looking clouds for sure, but scary, just because it looks that way doesn't mean it's producing a tornado. What it is doing, though, as this comes into Van Buren, is producing some really intense winds. Have we gotten any reports? You might take a look at the observation page. Make sure we're not getting any reports of stronger gusts. Go ahead and pull that up, if you wouldn't mind, Drake, and pull up the max wind gusts on that page and see what you can find. I don't know if we'll see anything or not, but this is really coming into Van Buren and Fort Smith very quickly and very strong. And again, in Van Buren, there are a lot of folks in Van Buren right now who are on edge.
So Darby, the strongest we've seen so far within our viewing area is 36 miles per hour just south of Salisaw.
That's the strongest.
And that's the strongest. But there was, let's see, this was recorded. If this will tell me when exactly this was recorded, there was a 50 mile per hour wind gust just north of Weddington. Just in the Weddington Wildlife Management area, there was
what was it again?
A 50 mile per hour gust there.
Okay, well that would have been earlier. So these storms have that straight line wind potential. All right, so we're keeping an eye on Van Buren. Still not seeing anything in here that says, all right, we've got a tornado going on. We're not seeing anything visually. Again, we've been watching it. We can see it here from Fort Smith, and we're about to get hammered in Fort Smith by that heavy rain too. And just nothing along any of this, anywhere in it that we're seeing anything that would give you the impression that a tornado is about to drop. But straight line winds absolutely a part of the concern. So we're watching all of that right in there. Let me go ahead and take that down. And let's go ahead and go back to the tornado warning storm farther north. What was that, Drake?
The National Weather Service is continuing to monitor this tornado warning, and they said that it has broadened and weakened, and if this trend do continue, they will not expand that tornado warning.
It has, and that is good to see, isn't it?
Very good to see.
Yeah. We don't want a repeat of yesterday, for sure. We got to keep an eye on it. We're watching areas farther north too, but not anything in there. A little something maybe in Carroll County that would bear watching. How does that? Let me take the lightning off, because that's going to make it a little bit harder to pick out things. A little bit of something going on there north of Marble, but not anything. And there's a little bit of something here around Hinesville. Where does that line up with the storms? It does line up. I mean, it's in an area. So I have to watch Huntsville as those get a little bit closer.
Do want to update you that the tornado warning that was moving out of parts of McAllister earlier, now near Wilburton, and has expanded that tornado warning into parts of LaFleur County.
There you have it. So another storm here farther south we'll have to watch. They've kind of seen it. Basically, it looks like they had originally a circulation kind of moving between Wilburton and Quinton, and now it looks like a new one's developed right over Wilburton. That one's moving toward an area north of Tallahena. We'll take a look at that here in a second. It's still pretty far off to the west.
That tornado warning in Crawford in Washington is going to be allowed to expire in 7 minutes.
That's good, and with any luck, that one will go away. But there may be additional problem spots that kind of pop up. What might be a good idea, Drake, do me a favor, take a look around on the RDOT cameras, see if you, on I-40, and if you see anything on I-49 in the River Valley, that'd be a good idea to look at as well. But we might pull up another RDOT camera here.
Let me go ahead and pull up this camera real quick on here, if it will. All right, I have the cam right near Alma on Highway 59 at exit 5 right now.
Okay.
That's on I-40. And you can kind of start to see the rain picking up, wind picking up there as well, right in front of the line. Let's see if we can get another look.
This is here in Van Buren, and that's not too far, obviously, from the Arkansas Club State border. We got some folks with their hazard lights on this is looking west, so they're driving into it right there. They're getting ready. All right, yeah, keep an eye on that. I'll come back to that. If you see anything of particular interest, definitely let me know. Let's take a look here at this storm right here. Clicker's giving a little bit of trouble this morning. Really not sure what's going on with that. I'm gonna have to step away here for a moment, go back to the computer. It's kind of going in and out for some reason, but we can take a closer look right here. And we've got, so it looks like this little circulations kind of developed. Boy, that's interesting. It's actually it's very similar to the area where we had the same a circulation earlier. They just kind of shifted where the tornado warning is quite a bit. Not sure if that's the movement, but this thing coming into Wilburton, yeah, I mean it's got some circulation to it. Nothing incredibly intense. A little bit farther north, there's something a little bit more impressive, actually, south of Quinta, which is interesting. And this area right here, which is an odd spot to kind of see it, but probably bears watching right there. I mean, there might be a little bit of side lobe contamination there, and the weirdest looking side lobe contamination I've ever seen, but I don't know, otherwise that's kind of hard to, it's in a very odd spot. But the storm around Wilburton, maybe it looks like it's trying to get its act together a little bit. So we'll see what happens with it. But not a situation in which we think there's a tornado on the ground right now. We'll come back to that as it gets a little bit closer to Leflore County, and still not seeing any significant rotation elsewhere in the River Valley. Pretty intense winds, it looks like, particularly around Foreman right now. Radar estimating some near 50-mile-per-hour winds in there. And as we come back north, and now that circulation is about to exit the tornado warning itself. This is where we had it earlier as it crossed over the interstate. Very broad, and didn't produce a tornado at that point. Maybe a little tighter, honestly, which is interesting to note. Here around Bidville. We're getting dips in values there, but they're in the same spots. They're not moving with the storm, and that's probably related actually to the terrain. I believe there's a mountain right here, so or right in that area. So that's probably what that is. But still a little bit of circulation. Not nearly as intense of a circulation, but still a bit. The good news for Northwest Arkansas is for us, Benton County, certainly we're pretty much in the clear of any risk of severe storms, and even the rain is going to start to weaken a bit as we go through time. And are we still seeing the afternoon being a little bit quieter? I mean, it seems like that's still going to be probably the case.
It looks like it might start to pick up in the River Valley during the evening, at least with the latest models, that the possibility is there.
Okay, yeah. Well, at least we maybe get a bit of a break in the severe risk, even if we still have some rain. I mean, we've got rain behind all this. I mean, you can see around Tulsa, and so we'll kind of see what happens with this batch of rain as it makes its way farther east. It may or may not hold together, but the good news is at least the second half of the day looks quieter than it does right now, even if we do get redevelopment this evening and overnight. We've got some new severe thunderstorm warnings they're issuing here in Huntsville. Want to come back? We were seeing a little bit of circulation, and it's still there.
They did add a tornado possible tag on that.
Yeah, and there's something interesting there around Carroll County too, though that may not be real. Hard to say. We can see that a little clearer from Springfield. Well, maybe not. That happens a lot with our Springfield radar. There's a little bit of spin up in there for sure. There's something to watch there around Cobbler, but within the viewing area itself, right here, just south of Huntsville, there's a broad area of rotation. So it's got a tornado tag on it. South of Huntsville, there's some circulation. So around Witter, Aurora, Wharton, in Madison County, this is coming toward Kingston, Reynolds, Venus. Especially the Kingston to Wharton to Aurora areas. Those are some of the spots where you might have farther down the road a little bit more tornado potential. That thing's trying to strengthen and trying to spin up a little bit more. It may try to produce a tornado in Madison County. That is a possibility. Outside of that, we don't see any significant tornado concerns or threats. So good news for Van Buren. What we do have, though, even though we don't have a warning on this specific part of the storm, we've got some pretty intense winds. And I'm going to come back to our camera again in Fort Smith, and it's way up there on that tower. You cannot see much, obviously, but and the camera doesn't seem to be bumping around all that much, although and we're getting lightning, so it's the camera's not frozen, so that's kind of a good sign in general. We'll go ahead and but when you look at some of these more intense winds, radars, let's make sure that that's legit. Maybe kind of stationary, but indicating some 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. When you look at it paired with radar, what's happened there is that the heavy rain's kind of gotten stationary. We've had multiple storms kind of converge on this area, South Sequoia County, right along the Arkansas River as this comes into Fort Smith. I tell you that they may need a flash flood warning for the Fort Smith and Van Buren areas, because even though they haven't gotten a ton of rain so far today, some of this is going to train a little bit in these areas, and we know, there's a new severe thunderstorm warning.
And it's moving at 25 miles an hour. It is slowed down.
That's not good. So the flooding threat definitely going to be there, and they're kind of seeing those winds that I'm seeing. National Weather Service is, and they're saying, all right, we got to issue a severe thunderstorm warning, and so they're certainly seeing the same thing. Close to 58 miles per hour or stronger is where the threshold is for a severe thunderstorm warranted storm. Dropped a little bit there. That's good to see. But some pretty strong winds just west of Fort Smith and coming into Fort Smith, we think, too, right now. And so they've issued a new severe thunderstorm warning for this one over Fort Smith, Greenwood, Pensacola, Spiro. It doesn't actually get into Van Buren, and the winds there don't look to be nearly as intense, and that's a real blessing because they've just been hit so hard the last 24 hours, and we're still watching what's going on down here around Wilburton, but there is not a tornado on the ground there, so I'm not going to bother worrying about too much right now. There's just nothing in there. So there was something that maybe, but there's just nothing in there really right now. We're seeing a little bit of an odd area of circulation earlier. South of Quinta, that's still kind of going just north of the tornado warning around here, but not, I don't know, that also doesn't look terribly concerning at the moment. Pretty strong winds coming into Fort Smith. Probably the strongest area of circulation is right over Huntsville. And again, we don't have a tornado warning in Huntsville right now, but we definitely have some intense winds. We don't have any RDOT cameras around there, I don't think. We do have the one
near Sonora would probably be the closest
but
one.
yeah, they're already out of the storm, so I'm not gonna. We don't need to. The rain's already stopped there. Something of interest here around Mulberry. That looks like it's just a new storm that's forming. It is, yeah. Yeah, it's a new storm forming there around Mulberry. So we do technically have a tornado warning within the viewing area right now. We've got this one down here. Again, that does not look like something that's immediately about to spit out a tornado. But we'll keep our eyes on it. The greater circulation is again here around Huntsville, but even that doesn't necessarily. We're not seeing enough circulation to get real worried about a tornado at this exact moment. So that's good. Of course, Huntsville area has seen some pretty significant damage in a few spots near town anyway. Last few weeks as well. I mean, we're all tired of this. I mean, obviously, your local meteorologists are too, but I am sure everybody at home is just absolutely sick and tired of the severe storms. And this is kind of our last round. There will be more chances tonight, as Drake was talking about, and we'll have to watch Sunday night. Sunday night may be kind of the last risk for us, but we're not through it yet. This is an interesting storm around Shady Point that certainly bears watching. But not seeing any elevated circulation, at least from Tulsa, and we're looking pretty high up, 7,000 feet. So if we're not seeing it at 7,000 feet, then I don't think there wouldn't be a meso there, I don't think. But boy, that is an interesting looking storm there. The one we're looking at is right here coming towards Shady Point. And it's just got a little bit more interesting of a structure. Now, whether that's really real or not, or whether it's just a product of multiple storms kind of coming together to give it that organization, give it that look, and that happens sometimes. Sometimes storms just come together, like 2 or 3 storms come together, and it gives a storm a look of being more organized than maybe it really is. I don't know if that's what's really going on with this right now. If we go back in time, there were 2 storms that merged there, and so that may be playing a role, but then sometimes 2 storms can merge and you get legitimate renewed organization. We can, I think in metrics 4, I might still have, Kavanaugh Hill, but well, is that cloud cover or is that rain over Kavanaugh Hill? Kavanaugh Hill is right here. So it's not even pouring down rain yet, but you just can't see anything because they're just socked in with the cloud cover. And that happens at that elevation. It's a wonderful camera, gives us a lot of really incredible looks, and sometimes during severe weather it can too, but then sometimes it just gets socked in with cloud cover. So we can't see anything right there right now. But that's a storm we'll want to keep our eye on. Come back to what we've got around Huntsville, and no clear increase in tornado potential around Huntsville, so that's good. Some strong winds. Anything new from the National Weather Service you're seeing, Drake? Anything on social media, whether it be the Facebook Live or anything you're seeing on Twitter?
I'm not seeing anything new from the Weather Service. I'm going through social media right now to see if I see any reports of damage currently. Right now, just seeing some people say that they don't have power, which with storms like this, that is definitely possible. And we even had some power outages earlier this morning. So
yeah. Something of interest we got to watch here northwest of Worcester. That's again in an odd spot. And it's behind the storm that really actually has maybe a little bit more organization, but something to watch there. Very intense. I really do, and the interesting thing here, I got to point this out, and I'll step back in front of the green screen, see if we can get the clicker to work again. I don't know, it's been giving us trouble this morning, and that happens off and on, but when we look at, there we go, the National Weather Service in Little Rock, you can see the new warnings they've issued right here. They've issued these warnings well in advance of this line. So the National Weather Service in Little Rock, anyway, has a lot of confidence that as these get east of Fort Smith, they're probably still going to have potential to be severe. So that's kind of an aspect of all this we've got to keep an eye on too. The straight line winds. We've been seeing some upticks here and there. You know, Drake, go ahead and take a look at the max wind gusts again. Let's see if we've gotten anything, especially around the Fort Smith Regional Airport.
And I do want to add that those new warnings that have been brought out by the National Weather Service in Little Rock all include tornado possible tags.
Really? All of them do?
Yes.
Okay. Well.
And the max wind gust so far right now at the Fort Smith Regional Airport is 24 miles an hour.
That's good.
25 just north of Alma as well is what we're getting here.
And you're not seeing anything else anywhere in there?
Else in there, not seeing any. Well, here we go. Fort Smith Regional Airport just brought in a new wind gust at 39 miles an hour.
Okay, well that's really kind of good to see. Now, look, these storms are still right over the top of Fort Smith, and the winds could pick up still even further if they're not already. Maybe they are right now, but not seeing it. Did see something with that. That's an interesting little spot right there. Yeah, just north of Greenwood. So that'll be something to watch too. I guess we can look at a little bit from Tulsa too. There may be something trying to spin around there, and that's kind of in that same area. So the area we're seeing maybe a little bit of elevated circulation compared to where the storm is. That's not far from the spot we're concerned with, and you know, these storms, as you go up in elevation, they're tilted because of the wind shear. And so now I wouldn't expect it necessarily to be tilted that far to the north of where the lower level circulation is, but it can't happen that way, I guess. But that's something to watch right there. And this is really close to the radar, so we're not seeing any clear circulation right there.
And Tulsa is saying that their tornado warning that's currently in Latimer County, right, moving into parts of LaFleur County, is not expected to be extended.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect. I mean, I think, and when we look, this thing is just not. I don't know. Let's take another look. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in here that gives the impression that it's really even got much tornado potential at all. So yeah, that'll be dropped, and we'll keep an eye on it as it comes into LaFleur County. New circulations develop all the time, and that'll be something we'll have to watch for. Watching this area around Greenwood too, but yeah. All right, a little bit farther along the line as these storms come into Franklin County. No circulations in there. Farther north, we still have this, broad area of general rotation over Madison County. Here's Huntsville, right? And so here's our circulation. And here's Kingston, here's Wharton, and Aurora there, Reynolds, the areas that we were mentioning earlier. It still has a broad area of circulation, but it still doesn't look like something that's necessarily about to produce a tornado. So we'll keep an eye on it. But that's about to come into Newton County around Boxley and the Ponca area, and the Buffalo River is about to get a lot more rain that, frankly, it probably just doesn't really need. And it's unfortunate for folks out there. This time of year, there's a lot of people trying to float the Buffalo River, and I'll bet it's going to be a little bit too high today, and it might be even too high tomorrow. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe somebody gets some runs in tomorrow, but this is one of those weekends. I'm confident there are going to be a lot of people visiting Newton County, maybe just doing some hiking, camping, whatever it may be. But if they were looking at the forecast, they may have changed their minds, I guess. So lot to watch here throughout the River Valley. We've been on air for a little bit here. What time? About an hour and a half, maybe.
I would say right after 5:30 is when that first warning came out. So about an hour or so is what we're about an hour 15 minutes, and
okay.
That circulation was ongoing for about an hour, and it is now finally fizzled out there. But now we're still looking at very strong straight line winds and possibly even more spin-ups across this line just with the energy that it has. And National Weather Service in Little Rock has gone ahead and extended those severe thunderstorm warnings out to the east and included tornado possible tags, which shows that they're also confident that this line can continue to produce spin-ups along the way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what we saw yesterday, and we've seen that at least one time this morning. Because I think we can say with at least a little bit of confidence that in Adair County, we had the debris signature. There probably was a brief tornado over there. So there might be a little bit more for National Weather Service storm survey teams to look at after they look at everything in Sequoia and Crawford County from yesterday morning, which I imagine they may have been doing yesterday, but hard to say. National Weather Service right now is short-staffed. That's the reality. And so I'm not sure exactly whether they've been able to get anybody out there. But once we actually know what the ratings are on those tornadoes, we'll relay that information. They haven't released any of that, though, that I've seen. Drake, have you seen anything?
No
Okay.
survey data has been released yet.
Yeah. Again, National Weather Service is short-staffed. So you can't really expect that they'll be able to get out there immediately. In a situation like this, but hopefully we'll get ratings on those tornadoes when they come in. Now you can see we still have that little bit of a notch right here around Greenwood. Not something that's terribly concerning to me, but these little notches this season anyway have been a problem at times. But radar not really showing any clear rotation there. Not sure what's going on here.
And the severe thunderstorm warning for Sebastian, Sequoia, and LaFleur has been canceled. Now that's for the part of that storm that's already moved through.
Right.
Yes.
I'm going to take a look at this real quick. I don't know what that is southwest of Hackett. It may not be legitimate. Let's take a closer look at it here. Yeah, I don't know what that is. An odd little signature right there. It's well ahead of the storms. But something to keep an eye on. So yeah, it is interesting to see that while the National Weather Service in Tulsa has done away with the warning over Fort Smith, and we don't have any warnings in here just ahead of this line, Little Rock does, that may be, in a lot of times, in a lot of cases, when you see that, it's basically one office thinking that the whatever line they're tracking is going to intensify further within the next 30 to 45 minutes, and that's very, very difficult to forecast. But they do have some tools that can give them some of those indications, and so that may be the anticipation that they'll get a little bit stronger as they get a little bit farther off to the east, which is why a place like Greenwood right now doesn't have a severe thunderstorm warning. Charleston as well, but areas to the east that are getting hit by the same exact storm do. So that may be what's going on there. Come back to this circulation around. We're still seeing this, still seeing it, but not necessarily again to the point that we think we've got a tornado on the ground. In fact, I don't suspect right now that we've got anything that's imminently, but low potential. There's a little bit of circulation here. Oh, and south of Summerfield, that's a new area right here. But it's intense. The winds there are intense. So certainly coming into the area western Lafleur County right now, we've got very intense winds in spots. Not everywhere, but we've definitely got them in spots. We can go back to, I think we still have, this is our Kavanaugh Hill camera, but again, just not really going to be able to see much. Fort Smith, starting to be able to see a little bit more there. The time lapse on that Fort Smith camera will be something we'll definitely take a look at. But this is from Sunset Mountain starting to work.
A little late for that.
Yeah, a little late for that, isn't it? Well, there you go. And there's Rogers. Let's bring up what RDOT camera do you have there?
That is
exit 8, Rogers Avenue, 540. Okay, this is in Fort Smith. Go ahead and while you do that, look a little bit farther down the line. Yeah, let's take a look around Ozark. Let's go all the way out to Ozark. Yeah, that rain's just now starting to come in there. Wind's starting to pick up, a lot of lightning. And this is along the segment of the line National Weather Service in Little Rock is saying, well, it's mostly straight line winds, but as a concern, but maybe a brief tornado that tries to pop up. If we go even just a little bit farther off to the west, this is going to be looking east, so we're not going to be able to see much from it. But the wind's picking up out ahead of it. This is Coal Hill. Do we have a west?
They're all eastbound facing as you go towards Clarksville.
Golly. Well, that doesn't do us any good. Well, we might come back to that at some point. All right. Come back to radar here.
We do have a report on Facebook now, obviously unconfirmed, but apparently there are some trees down in Mountainburg from earlier, from when that storm through.
All right. When that came through, we look at the winds over there earlier this morning. About an hour ago, this comes into Mountainburg. Well, the radar didn't show any, but it doesn't have a good. The problem is these storms are moving like this, or maybe a little more of an easterly component to it. But then the radar beam is hitting those winds at a perpendicular angle, and so you cannot get a good sampling of the wind speeds with radar if it's hitting those winds at a perpendicular angle. Now, from Fort Smith, I wonder, Fort Smith, you can see we're obviously looking quite a bit higher up in the atmosphere, but it was estimating, some stronger winds, and there's some 60, 65 mile per hour winds. Now that's well above the surface, 6,000 to 7,000 feet, but that doesn't surprise me. So we've got some trees down then around Mountainburg. Where did you see that?
That was on
social
Facebook.
Media?
Yes, social media.
Wow.
And then the National Weather Service in Tulsa continued that severe thunderstorm warning for Lafleur County and has included a tornado possible tag on that.
Okay. For this one right here?
Yes.
And it's just a continuation, not a new one?
Yes.
Then. Okay. All right. That's pretty fair given what we're seeing. Boy, this circulation's starting to tighten up here south of Summerfield. And that's getting more intense. That is something that we've really got to keep a close eye on. The storm itself, there's zero organization to it, but it's got circulation. I bet from Tulsa we can see that.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably, yeah, that's, and it's getting stronger. Even above the surface, we're seeing a little bit of an intensification of that overall rotation. And that's looking up around, that from Tulsa, that's looking up around 9,000 feet, so it may have a mesocyclone with it. And then we've got down closer to ground level, 2,700 feet above the surface, we've got clear circulation there. That's something to watch. We'll need to keep an eye on that. That's coming right down Highway 1, moving toward the area north of Lenox, north of Big Cedar, around Stapp, Zoe, those areas. So we'll come back to that. Again, pretty intense storms right now. Coming right into Clarksville. Coal Hill just now entered into Ozark and just went through Mulberry. Mulberry will be on the brighter side of things here before too long. Very heavy rain around Fort Smith and Van Buren. I think especially Fort Smith, because Fort Smith's going to be in the thick of things a little bit longer. We're probably going to have some flash flooding.
A little bit of a something just
right
west
here.
of Coal Hill.
Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I just saw it.
Well, it's a new storm that formed ahead right there. See that?
Yes.
And sometimes, you know, there's some new research by a storm chaser and a meteorologist, and you know, somebody pretty deep in academia. He's actually shown that there may be a lot of circumstances in which storms will kind of nudge circulation along. He calls them nudgers. I don't know. I don't think that's what we've got here, but you see that sometimes where storms start to interact with one another, and it can lead to intensifying circulation. I don't think we're seeing that right now. We're not seeing a lot of spin up here with the storm around Madison County coming into Newton County. I think here what we're going to do is at 7 p.m., assuming we don't have any new tornado warnings, we may end up getting you to regular programming. Looking around here,